Fill her up.
You're listening to the Gas Digital Network.
We need to roll back the state. We spy on all of our own citizens. Our prisons are flooded with nonviolent drug offenders. If you want to know who America's next enemy is, look at who we're funding right now. Every single one of these problems are a result of government being way too big.
You're listening to Part of the Problem on the Gas Digital Network. Here's your host, Dave Smith.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to a brand new episode of Part of the Problem. I am Dave Smith. He is Robbie the Fire Bernstein. Whew. What a weekend. How are you, sir? It's good to see you. It was fun hanging out in Austin.
It was fun watching you at the mothership. That's quite an electric room. It was fun watching you talk about the Trump thing right after it happened. That was cool.
Listen, the whole weekend was incredible, but those two shows on Saturday, they're two of the best shows I ever had in my life. Like, it was just unlike anything. I mean, Trump, the assassination attempt happened maybe an hour before I was on stage. I was walking over there. I was getting ready to walk over to the club and saw it on my phone. And then, this is one of those things. It's fun to be a stand-up comic at the best comedy club in the world while something like that happens. And then just, it was great. Anyway, for the people who came out, thank you very much. It was the weekend was just incredible, as always, over there. And of course, Rob, as you know, the major news of the last
Porch
few
Tour?
days
Philly
has
this
been
weekend?
I was going to say our new site launch, but that's all these things have been overshadowed to some degree by some other irrelevant events that people are really focused on. But of course, if you had seen, we put the announcement out the other day that we are Part of the Problem is going independent. We are expanding. We're putting out more content. We're doing a whole lot of bonus stuff for people who sign up. Also, I don't know if I specifically mentioned, but we're bringing back the Part of the Problem Inner Circle, which was kicked off of Facebook in 2020. That was a group for supporting listeners that me and Rob would interact in all the time. And so we'll be doing that again. But now we're doing it on our site at partoftheproblem.com, and it launches on Monday. So if you love this show, if you find value in what we do, please, we ask you to come over and support us if you can. We're going independent. We're taking this thing to the next level. And I think it's going to be great for everybody involved. So I'm very excited about that. All right. Well, I recorded an episode with Scott Horton while I was out in Austin there, but me and you haven't talked about, we've talked personally, but we have not on the show yet talked about Donald Trump getting shot. I guess I would just start by saying we were already in the middle of what I had been describing as like the craziest news cycle. Joe Biden's debate performance, the entire Democratic establishment getting ready to throw the sitting president of the United States of America under the bus, who is very clearly cognitively impaired. I mean, that was a pretty big story. And then now all of that is completely overshadowed, obviously, by something that we just have not seen in recent American history. The Ronald Reagan, of course, was shot, but that was a long time ago. It was in 1981, I believe. Ronald Reagan was shot. That is, 40 plus years ago. And of course, obviously, there were several major political assassinations in the 60s. But this just isn't something that we've had to deal with in the United States of America. I don't know about you, Rob, but I remember my first thought almost when you saw it is it's like your first thought is like, holy shit, I can't believe this just happened. And then in a way you are like, I can't believe it hasn't happened. The temperature has been so high over the last, 8 years or so that it's hard. It's almost like, wow, this can be done. And it took this long for someone to do it. The whole thing is just pretty surreal. I don't know. What are your thoughts on this, Rob?
I guess
obviously there's a lot of different angles, but what comes to mind?
if you just want to talk first thoughts, I guess it speaks to how much more of a panic Jew I am than you are, because I was texted while I was in an Uber, and I started trying to decipher through the videos to see how authentic it was, whether or not he had really been shot at, and I started getting nervous that, like, hey, man, maybe I got to go back to the hotel. Good thing you're at the mothership tonight. I know they have security. I was like, because for like the first 3 minutes until I could actually decipher, oh, he had been shot at, but it only hit his ear. I was like, things might get crazy, because if they just executed Donald Trump, I don't think the nation's just taking that one sitting down.
Well, look, dude, that is, it's an excellent point, and it's one of the things I've been thinking a lot about over the last few days. They have online, they've like kind of mapped out the trajectory of the bullet, and you can see it actually in the video. Like the exit is like apparent.
Does God exist, and does he love Trump? Is that
clearly,
what we learned? I
clearly,
mean, it's
God wants all of us to vote for Donald Trump. Obviously, there's no arguing that anymore. No, but I mean that when he moves at the last second, I mean right here, his brains are blown out on national television, and then right here, and it just takes out his ear. But it is, you kind of can't overstate this, because it's such a profound thing that we were like millimeters and one little turn away from living in a drastically different timeline. And to your, to run the counterfactual, the very obvious counterfactual here, I genuinely think the question is, how much violence would there have been in response to that? It's not a question of whether there would have been violence as a response to that. I mean, if Donald Trump had been assassinated on national television right now, under the current, after everything, and I'm not even saying this, by the way, we'll get into kind of speculating on what we think's going on here in a second. I'm just saying that without any of that, without buying into any conspiracy, even if it wasn't any type of conspiracy, the idea, how it would have played to every Trump supporter in this country is like, come on, dude. Like, after framing them and impeaching them and putting them through these BS trumped up charges, which one of them just got dropped, by the way. But after all of that, and then Joe Biden has this disastrous debate performance, and then Donald Trump's winning in all the polls, then you guys take him out. I mean, that's how it would have been, and understandably so. I don't think there's any group, I don't think there's any political group of people who, if all of those things had happened, would not have the overwhelming majority of them conclude that, like, oh yeah, you guys just wouldn't allow this guy in. And I don't care if you love Donald Trump or hate Donald Trump, it would have been the worst thing for our country.
All right, and then can we just talk about how cool Donald Trump played it? Firstly, his initial reaction is like there was a mosquito behind him. Just this, manages to dodge the bullet off of going like that. Has the wisdom to stand up and go, fight, 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 and then shows up the next day or 2 days later to the RNC like WWF style with a fake bandage on his ear, selling it for everything it's worth. I mean, listen, you can hate Donald Trump for a lot of reasons, but the guy just survived getting shot on national television and did not bitch out, did not try and run away, did not instantly duck and take one of those fat women and put him in front of him. He could not have been cooler, calm, and collected, and style points to Trump on that one.
I mean, it's insane to have the wherewithal you just got shot in the head. I mean, okay, it was in the ear, but still, a bullet just whizzed by your head. Many other shots were fired. You don't know what's going on. Your Secret Service is surrounding you and telling you we got to move. And you go, wait. I got to take the coldest picture in the history of politics right now. Hey, does anyone have the American flag perfectly draped behind me? Oh, you do. Great. Excellent. Blood trickling down the face. I mean, it was just, look, what can you say? And on top of all of that, it's the juxtaposition of coming off of a few weeks where the entire nation is having a national conversation about whether the sitting president of the United States' brain is so retarded that he's not able to speak and walk. And Donald Trump is catching bullets in his teeth and spitting them back out and like taking these badass pictures. I mean, it's like it is so Trumpian, like every inch of it, where he could be, you know, you're like in the war, you know, like the walls are always closing in, but then he just does better than ever. Every attempt to bring him down just makes him stronger. And look, if you say every attempt to bring him down makes him stronger, this was the most like it was so out of a movie.
I think if there is a Matrix, Donald Trump might be manifesting our reality. Either that or we actually saw Jedi live on television. But the luck of moving your head in that way and handling it as coolly as he did, I mean, I don't like him, but God bless.
Yeah, it really is. It's just pretty incredible. Right, I don't know. All right, guys, let's take a moment and thank our sponsor for today's show, which is Fume. Fume is a better way to break your bad habits. Not talking about some weird mind voodoo from your crazy neighbor. This is something you can trust. Fume, spelled F-U-M, but pronounced fume, recognizes that not everything in a bad habit is wrong. So instead of drastic, uncomfortable change, why not just remove the bad from your habit? That's what Fume does. It's an innovative, award-nominated device that does just that. Instead of electronics, Fume is completely natural. Instead of vapor, Fume uses flavored air. And instead of harmful chemicals, Fume uses all natural, delicious flavors. You get it. Instead of bad, Fume is good. It's a habit you're free to enjoy, and it makes replacing your bad habit easy. I will tell you, I know a lot of people who have successfully given up bad habits using Fume. So if you're trying to do that, give it a shot. Stopping is something we all put off because it's hard, but switching to Fume is easy, enjoyable, and even fun. Fume has served over 100,000 customers and has thousands of success stories. There's no reason that can't be you. So join Fume in accelerating humanity's breakup from destructive habits by picking up the Journey Pack today. Head to tryfume.com and use the promo code PROBLEM to save 10% off when you get the Journey Pack today. That's tryfume.com, TRYFUM.com, promo code PROBLEM to save an additional 10% off your order today. All right, let's get back into the show.
Can we talk conspiracy for a minute here?
Sure.
All right, so I've been in a car literally for 2 straight days after flying from, so, you know, I'm not as up on everything Twitter as usual. But there was one picture I saw in the New York Post of the layout of where he was giving the speech that to me instantly said it all. And that there's basically Donald Trump's giving a speech. You got these 2 buildings that apparently they had no one on top of, and then this high water tower. I'm not a sniper. I've never served in the military, but I've watched enough World War II movies to know if I'm putting one sniper anywhere, it's always the water tower. I've watched so many World War II movies. It's always the church. They walk into a town. Oh, sniper up in the church tower. Oh, there's the high point. I don't know anything about military, but the idea that you were securing that area and there was no sniper up in that water tower just strikes me as I'm either the most royal fuck up ever, or you guys were setting this up to go, hey, here's your chance. There you go. Look at that water tower and tell me if you're looking to secure an outside area for a speech. You wouldn't be putting a sniper there? That does not... I know nothing about military. I've shot a gun 5 times in my life, and that just seems to make sense to me.
I think, look, there's a lot about this story that's not adding up.
We don't have drones.
Right
we don't
now,
have facial recognition stuff.
But look, there's no question that it is somewhere on the spectrum of different possibilities, and the one all the way over here at best case scenario, like the best case of what just happened here, was the most royal screw up by the Secret Service and the local police. There's no getting around that. It was an enormous a screw up to the level of where, you know, Scott Horton said this when we were recording the other day, and I never even thought about this. And then when he said it, I was like, oh yeah, that's so obvious. But how corrupt and not just corrupt, but how deep rooted is the insane lack of accountability in our government that we did not wake up on Sunday morning to the news that the head of the Secret Service had resigned. Like, at the very least, how can you screw up? Because best case scenario, it is the most monumental screw up in the current political war environment we're in. We know not only does this does a sniper get this position and this roof has not been checked? But it's also now been reported that evidently there were people in the building. They had snipers in that building, just not on the roof. It's also been reported that he had some type of confrontation with a local police officer. Like a police officer got onto the roof, saw him, and then went back down. We also know that, and we know this because we know this for a fact. This isn't just, it's been reported, that we have on video. Many people are trying to warn them. Many people see the guy before he shoots Trump, and they're like, hey, who is that guy? There's a guy on a roof up here. What's going on? And it's, there's a lot more questions than that need to be answered. Everybody is in agreement that like we need a full investigation. The problem is that investigations, when you get to this level of political power, are always bullshit. So who knows what information we're gonna get out of that. The interesting thing about this happening in 2024, rather than say like when I was a kid or like with Jack Kennedy when like my mother was a kid, is that already now you just see, if you ever watched, I was bringing this up in the green room, I think we were talking about it, but the Don't Fuck with Cats documentary, where it's just, there's this crazy guy who's killing cats and putting videos out there, and the internet is just on it. And they get to the bottom of the crime. They actually solve it, and the guy was a murderer, and it's a really crazy story. But you see already where, like, it makes you, like, imagine Jack Kennedy getting shot in Dallas. Imagine that happens in 2024. It goes a whole different way. And there's no way you can, like, limit all the firsthand accounts. They all have a platform now to speak. You'd have, I don't know, 100,000 times more videotapes like emerge of every angle, like it's a different world. The other thing that is, so from the information that we've had on this guy, who's dead now, the shooter, was that essentially he was a registered Republican but had donated to several like liberal causes. They're saying the guy has no social media footprint. That to me is a bit of a red flag, that you're like, wait, hold on. You're telling me there's somebody today in their 20s who is so politically radicalized that they think that they're ready to go assassinate a president, but they haven't been on social media? That seems very hard for me to believe. It was also reported that they have the kid's phone, but they can't get into it, which seems just like, come on, you're telling me that the most important phone ever to get into, you guys can't get into it? All of this seems to be, let's just say.
Sounds kind of like the Epstein safe to me.
Yeah, it's this is just unacceptable. These answers are unacceptable. Who is Robbie Sov?
Slavik.
Robbie Suave. I always mess up how to pronounce his name, but Robbie tweeted, let me see if I can find this.
He's written for Schultz on those not the roast, but when he was doing those like topical things, and I think he was writing for Jon Stewart. He's a funny guy.
No. I'm not talking
thinking of a different guy.
Yes, you're thinking of somebody else. I'm talking about Robbie, who hosts. Not Rob. I like him a lot. He's great. You're thinking of Robbie Slowick.
Oh yeah.
Who's great. I haven't talked to him in years, but very, very funny guy. No, I'm talking about Robbie from Reason magazine. He hosts Rising for The Hill. But anyway, he posted this earlier today. Secret Service Director Kim Cheadle on why they weren't stationed on the roof where the assassin fired from. And he said, quote, "The building in particular has a sloped roof at its highest point. And so, there's a safety factor that would be considered there, that we wouldn't want to put somebody up on a sloped roof."
Our guys are a bunch of bitches. And,
Robbie continues here. He says, but the Secret Service officer who killed the assassin were on a different sloped roof. This excuse makes no sense.
It was a different angle slope. Once you get to a certain angle, it's not safe for our soldiers who we could also be putting up in trees or could be easily harnessing them in or, guarding the area with one of our drones that could be all the way up in the sky, aimed down. That's
Again,
bullshit.
These are just totally unacceptable answers. And so we're getting a lot of that. Now, I'm not jumping to what I'm saying this means. I certainly know that, as a response to it, of course, the White House has not only upped Donald Trump's security, but they gave the Secret Service to RFK finally, which is wild that you think they've gotten away. Huh?
He might not want them.
Yeah, right. At this point, it's like I've been doing okay with my own guys. I think we'll stick with that. But it's wild that they denied it to Bobby for so long. Just insane. And anyway, we'll see what type of information that more information comes out. But there's no question, like, major things are not adding up in this story.
Just as a closing remark on this, I find it hard to believe that we live in a country with a open border to the south, that ISIS, Iran, or any enemy country could sneak one good sniper over that border and be killing our presidential candidates. I just find that hard to believe.
Yeah. Look, I know what you mean. All right, guys, let's take a moment and thank our sponsor for today's show, which is Monetary Metals. Unlock a 12% return on silver. Are you ready to start building wealth by putting your precious metals to work for you? Silver isn't just a precious metal, of course. It's a tangible asset and a great way to diversify any investment portfolio. But with Monetary Metals, you don't just own physical silver. You own silver that works for you to generate more silver, growing your total ounces over time. Right now, you can earn 12% annual interest on silver paid in silver in their latest offering if you're an accredited investor. Click the link in the episode description or head over to monetary-metals.com to learn more. Monetary Metals is revolutionizing the way you invest in gold and silver. They've been paying interest in silver and gold for over 8 years, helping you grow your wealth in real tangible assets. Finally, there's a true alternative to saving in dollars, a yield on gold and silver with Monetary Metals. This is the first true silver bond since 1834. You earn 12% annual interest on silver paid in silver. You must be an accredited investor to participate. It's a 3-year term. The bond is financing a publicly traded mining company located in the Western United States. Again, click the link in the episode description or head on over to monetary-metals.com to participate. All right, let's get back into the show. Okay, so here's another element to this story that is, to me, I think, politically speaking, one of the biggest ones. And it's another way that Donald Trump in every conceivable way has won this moment. It could not have worked out more in his favor. Now, obviously, it's I should mention this before we get into that topic too, that I don't know if you've seen this, Rob, but there's been a few like man on the street videos and a few tweets that have been highlighted. But there also there's a growing conspiracy on the left that this was all staged. And I think that this is it's a combination of like confirmation bias, like what their worldview is, and how this just doesn't really fit into it, and then the fact that it's like a failure to be able to grapple with the fact that this worked out so well in his favor and that everything just always works out so well for Donald Trump.
It could be staged, but the riskiness of having actually someone shoot at you,
it's too retarded, dude. It's ridiculous. Yeah. The idea that you'd move like that on a split second and a split second difference, you have your brains blown out. No, Donald Trump got shot. He did not this was not a plan that the Trumpists were in on. There's just no way. It's just very hard for them to accept that this worked out so good. Listen, this worked out so well for him politically and this is what I was going to get to before. And I think one of the ways in which this worked out so well for him is that it essentially, in effect, called the bluff of the entire Democratic establishment. And with very few notable exceptions, they all had to had to admit it. And they're like, yeah, we were bluffing. Because listen, from Barack Obama to Hillary Clinton to Joe Biden to the corporate media, all of them wish Donald Trump a speedy recovery and then started talking about how we have to take the temperature down. And I'm sorry, that's, it's a weird thing. It's like, I think we were talking about this on the show recently, Rob, but when Biden had that interview and they asked him at one point if he would be okay losing to Donald Trump. And he goes, as long as I did my best, as long as I gave it everything I had, then it's fine. And you're like, oh, no, but dude, that totally undercuts your entire campaign. The entire thing you're running on is that this guy is the end of democracy, that the soul of America is on the line, right? So you can't say, oh, we're on the brink of fascism, but even if we become fascist, as long as I gave it the old college try, then everything's fine. Sorry, it's one or the other. It can't be both of those things. And look, if you're going to say this guy is literally Hitler and that, democracy is on the ballot, well, then you can't wish Hitler a speedy recovery. And as soon as you do wish him a speedy recovery, you admit that you were full of shit the whole time by implication. And so that's where they're all at right now, is that they have to acknowledge that. It's also destroys the entire the entire backdrop of this Democratic narrative. What they need in order for this narrative to fly is that Donald Trump is introducing political violence. Look at January 6th. He incited an insurrection. His people are domestic terrorists. They tried to kidnap a governor after all. That's what they're relying on. And now, of course, when this, something that's never happened to a Democratic president, this nearly successful assassination attempt, now it puts all of the focus back on, well, what's your rhetoric been? And of course, the Democrats are very reliant on this narrative that Trump's the one who is inserting politically dangerous rhetoric. He's the guy who led to January 6th, and he's the guy who's, has all these domestic terrorists on his side. And of course, now the focus is like, well, what rhetoric have you guys been using? If you're gonna play this game where you're like dangerous rhetoric leads to these violent outcomes, all right. And just to be clear here, I'm not saying that that any, even calling Donald Trump literally Hitler or anything like that is incitement to violence. It's not. I'm a free speech absolutist. You have a right to say what you want to say. But at the same time, the rhetoric of the entire establishment is what leads to the thing that I opened the show by saying, that you can't believe this hasn't happened already. In a sense, it's like, their narrative is not that, like our narrative, we might talk about how corrupt the entire system is, but that's not their narrative. Their narrative is it's this one guy, right? Like everything is reasonably okay in the United States of America, but this one guy is a threat to democracy. This one guy is going to overthrow, and you can go, as everyone is pulling it up now, and look at all the stuff they're saying for years, whether it's that he overthrew democracy in 2016 by conspiring with Vladimir Putin, or he attempted to institute a dictatorship in 2020. But if you're saying the guy is literally Hitler, that democracy is on the line right now, well, you might convince somebody out there that they could save democracy and they could be a hero.
I think you make a brilliant point, and that I don't know how they're going to be able to continue with the end of democracy and Trump is Hitler talk, which was the only card they had, as we've been playing Cisco over the last couple episodes over on MSNBC with Oliver talk about end of democracy. Yeah. So I don't know how those characters who are very into this concept of, not calling people to violence, or at least for the next month or 2 months, they're going to have to take a little bit of time off from the Trump is literally Hitler and this will be the end of our democracy if he gets in. And I don't know what other sale they even have.
Well, this is what's crazy about the whole thing is on every level politically now, this is bolstering Trump. I mean, you're taking away the one weapon that they have. It's the only weapon they've had since he's been elected president the first time, is that we can fearmonger up to 11, you know? So what you're saying now, they're not allowed to do that? How do they handle that? I mean, look, a couple things on this topic here, okay? But like, look, the first one is, which was pretty amazing in itself, that MSNBC pulled Morning Joe the day after. The Morning Joe people were furious about this, by the way. They were all trashing their network on TV today because they pulled Morning Joe. So here, let's play that video. Here is this was from Morning Joe on MSNBC this morning.
Talk about what happened yesterday. We were told in no uncertain terms on Sunday evening that there was going to be one news feed across all NBC News channels yesterday. The Today Show would be Lester Holt, other people that you worked with on Sunday, and that was going to be one news feed across all NBC News channels, that we were going to stay as a network in breaking news mode throughout all day yesterday. That did not happen. We don't know why that didn't happen. Our team was not given a good answer as to why that didn't happen, but it didn't happen. We were also told it was going to happen throughout the day. And I guess after there was such a strong blowback about yesterday morning, I guess they changed their plans. And so those plans changed as well. So it didn't. We've talked about it off the air. We'll talk about it on the air because we talk about everything on the air. We were very surprised. We were very disappointed. And if we had known that there wasn't going to be the one news feed from NBC News across all NBC News channels, Willie, we obviously would have been in yesterday morning.
Yeah, I was here up early on Sunday morning with NBC's coverage. Savannah and I led the coverage on Sunday in the immediate aftermath, talking to eyewitnesses, talking to officials about what happened. Obviously suited up and ready to go for yesterday morning on a big morning, and we're told that something else was going to be broadcast. So we are here today going through a lot, catching up a little bit, but we want to be here for our audience, and we know you trust us, and we have ultimate respect for you guys. So we are here today. I wish we'd been here yesterday.
We all wish we would have been here yesterday. We still would like to figure out exactly why there wasn't that one news feed.
And I think the reason why is this show began and continues 17 years later on being the place where you can go to have the hard conversations in a civil way. And so it seemed like now more than ever is a time
all right, let's
that
cut
we
this
would
off.
like to be.
Isn't it amazing? Yeah, Mika, listen, it can be challenging to evaluate yourself. I know. And you're like, this is crazy because we're the show that's known for being the place where you can. No. I'm sorry. The people at your network were being nice. They were lying to you. You got pulled off the air because even at MSNBC, the top brass knew that it's just too risky to put these psychopaths on TV today. Like, they're going to find a way to blame Trump for his own assassination attempt. They're going to say that, like, this panel is going to say wild, crazy things. They are never going to be able to acknowledge that, oh yeah, we did essentially lay the groundwork for convincing somebody that they'd be a hero to go do something like this. But that's exactly what they did. I mean, come on. You can't tell me that, like, if one man represents a Hitlerian threat to your nation, that the thing wouldn't be noble to do. You can't. See, the thing is that they're all tacitly admitting that they never meant any of that bullshit. That's what Obama's admitting when he comes out and wishes him a speedy recovery. Because you don't wish Hitler a speedy recovery, right? So they're admitting they didn't. But that doesn't mean that someone listening to these guys couldn't really believe it. Now, again, I'm not even claiming that that's what happened or that's why the guy went and attempted to kill him. Who knows? There's still a lot more questions than there are answers about this. However, if you're having this whole conversation about dangerous rhetoric that leads to violence, There's just no way to ignore this. And the proof is right there that MSNBC was not comfortable to put their biggest morning show on. It was just too dangerous. They're like, just get some of the like boring straight news guys to do a show. Get Lester Holt in there, whatever. Like, we can't put Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski on air the day after someone almost assassinated Donald Trump. There you have it.
They're the show you watch to see that, if you cheat on your spouse, the new relationship can work out. That's why their show exists, to be an inspiration. Or, by the way, they might have been pulled because they just don't want to cover the stuff at all. They're like, guys, we can't be asking questions. This was pretty obvious that our government was probably in on this. So, let's take the day off from the news and we'll come back tomorrow when there's a new topic.
It's pretty funny, like the lack of self-awareness that they have. That they don't even realize how, like, that everyone except them knows what happened here. But they're on air going, I don't understand because we were told this, but that didn't happen at all. So you explain it to me. Why would they pull us off the air? It's like, you need me to explain it to you? Yeah, okay, I will. It's because you're insane people.
It's like the comics that went right back to comedy after 9/11. They're like, our job is to tell jokes. And these guys are like, we're here to call Trump Hitler. We'll do it the next day. We'll be the ones that do. That's our job, and we'll do it. We don't care if he was just shot at. The guy's still Hitler.
Dude, so fucking Bill Maher going on stage. I'm not gonna do jokes. Oh, okay. Well, I mean, we did pay for a comedy show. That's kind of the idea.
Speaking to your point that they can't use this narrative anymore or talk in this way. So apparently there was a conference call where Biden was saying we're going to put Donald Trump in the crosshairs. Or in the bullseye. It was one of the two. Now, I know the way that Joe Biden speaks, that's just his old malarkey buster talk. That wasn't him on a call saying we're going to go execute Donald Trump. Even at his level of dementia, that's just his 100%. Weird. That's just his weird way of speaking. And so he had to address that with Lester Holt, and he was just kind of, firstly, he didn't handle it particularly well, as you can imagine, as he's not smooth, but he just starts walking back the language, and just by seeing him have to sit there and walk back the language, I think speaks to your point that they're really not going to be able to be out there going, it's the soul of our country, if he gets back in, it's the end of our democracy. I just think you're right that for at least a short period, they're not going to be able to talk like that.
All right, guys, let's take a moment and thank our sponsor for today's show, which is My Patriot Supply. Stop what you're doing and listen to this. Your God-given freedoms are up for the taking. Even worse, those doing the taking are the same people who've sworn to defend your freedom. They think they can violate your right to protect your family. They think they can force their delusions on your children. They think they can control the media and hide the truth. But what they can't take away is self-reliance and peace of mind. Got water filtration? You should. A charged solar generator? You better. Emergency food on your shelves? Get it now and get it from My Patriot Supply. Having served millions of American families, My Patriot Supply is the most trusted name in survival, and for darn good reasons. Go to preparewithsmith.com right now and save $200 on their best-selling 3-month emergency food kits. It delivers over 2,000 calories per day, sealed inside practically unpierceable packaging. It lasts up to 25 years. And did I mention it's delicious? And you can get as much as you need right now at my website, preparewithsmith.com, and you'll save $200 per kit, plus free shipping is included. Preparewithsmith.com. Go check it out. All right, let's get back into the show. Again, it's hard to not, it's jarring even for people who didn't like Donald Trump. I think even for people who don't like Donald Trump, there's got to be a huge percentage of them who are like, whoa, but like, we almost just saw him get his brains blown out on national television.
Going for him.
Yeah, well, yeah. Well, look, it's hard. I think it's very hard to not have people at least ask those questions. Look, obviously, again, like I said before, we have a lot more questions than answers. There's a lot of things, as I mentioned, that don't add up about this, and we'll see how much information we get. But just circumstantially, in the same way that, look, there were news reports when Tucker Carlson had that clip months ago where he was like, look, I mean, like, graph this thing out. We're moving toward an assassination attempt against Donald Trump. They've tried everything and it's not working. And, you know, and he was written up in articles for spreading far right conspiracy theories, you know? And so it's impossible, almost impossible for any human being because after all, we are pattern recognizing creatures. And it's impossible for anyone, like if there was somebody who was attempting to kill someone or attempting to ruin someone's life, step by step by step by step, and they kept doing it over and over again, and then that person ends up murdered, your first thought is to go, well, how about that guy who's been trying to ruin him in every way that they could? So it's just impossible to not wonder, okay, are these the same forces that have trying to get him in every other conceivable way? Anyway, we will see. The other big news, because we're coming up against the end of time here because we've had some tech issues on this show, but we got to talk a bit about the other major news, because of course the RNC is going on right now. Donald Trump selected his vice president yesterday, and it's a bit of a surprise pick, I would say, but he went with J.D. Vance. I think that I don't know, there's a lot of different ways, a lot of different angles on this. I tweeted the other day, well, it's a hell of a lot better than Mike Pence. So there you go. Obviously, of the people who had been floated, my preferred pick would have been Vivek Ramaswamy. That being said, when you're picking a vice president, a lot of it, particularly with Trump, in the kind of unique situation Donald Trump's in, where you have this guy who is, let's say, viewed as a threat by the system. And one of the, he has kind of, he's run on some things that are nice ideas. We're going to drain the swamp. You're like, okay, I'm for that. And he's said some good things about wars, said some very bad things about wars. But really one of his major failures was his appointments and how terrible so many of the people he appointed were. The point I'm making is that I'd rather Vivek Ramaswamy have some other job with more power than be vice president. I'd rather him be in charge of just gutting the deep state or something like that. But you're looking for a signal from Donald Trump's first choice, who's going to be his vice president. And they had been floating out names like Marco Rubio and stuff like that. And if he had picked him, it would have been a very strong signal that this guy has not learned his lesson at all. J.D. Vance is better than that. It's certainly better than if he had picked Marco Rubio. One of the things that's interesting about J.D. Vance is that he also has had a lot of establishment people coming after him, trying to ruin him. Tucker Carlson had a thing that he said the other day about how that tells you sometimes more than people's views themselves. So there's something positive about that. The issue, though, is that he's really terrible on a lot of issues, really terrible. He's terrible on Israel. He was terrible on Julian Assange. The guy was like a never Trumper at one point in 2016. Now he claims he fell for the media narrative. He went and gave an interview at the Republican National Convention yesterday where he was basically bragging about how Trump was so hard on Iran and Joe Biden's so weak on Iran. And that's why we have the problems we have today. I can't ignore all of that. It's that to me is not good stuff. Not good.
I don't know that much about Mr. Vance, but he seems like a pretty vanilla establishment Republican. I guess it's a little bit interesting that he went with a younger guy. But I have to dig in. But it sounds like they got a pro deep state guy, or at least pro war guy.
He's definitely not good on those issues. I mean, one of the things that's interesting is that he is very connected to the Peter Thiel world. And Donald Trump now, it seems like after his assassination attempt, not that he wasn't already kind of behind him, but it seems like Elon Musk went full blown behind Donald Trump. Now to have Peter Thiel on the team as well, who's always kind of been behind Trump, but he's more ingrained than ever before. It's an interesting battle where Donald Trump seems to be getting some very wealthy, very powerful people behind him. Also, by the way, just during all of this, sorry, jumping around here, but that the documents case was dropped, which is like, that's a big deal. And so we're going through a big shift here. And the other thing we should mention before we wrap this show up is that in addition to that, it seems like at least there's some reporting that the move to swap out Biden has now been completely stalled. And I don't exactly understand why that is. I think it might just be a thing where they're like, it's just too crazy right now. Like, we just can't do another crazy thing. I don't know, but it seems like there's been a bunch of reporting on this, that all of the Democratic donors had basically gotten together and made up their minds that Biden is out, and now everything's on pause, and it's just unclear what's going to happen with that. But you try to think of how many different ways Donald Trump can win, and that might be right up there at the top. That now he's going to run against this senile guy, possibly, because this thwarted the plan to replace him, which is really like, just unbelievable.
This is turning into some epic chaos. You know, I did an episode bet on boring, and I was wrong. We're headed for full-scale chaos. It's getting fun. You know, I got to follow the news every day, even when you just got to read some Supreme Court decision on some technical nonsense. But, you know, now we got assassination attempts. We've got a guy with dementia they can't get out. Democrats who can't say that Biden's Hitler. This story just took a fun turn in the third act.
It's wild, dude. And it's only July 16th. There's still a lot of time to go for this, and it's going to be real interesting. We'll be doing coverage of the Republican National Convention and stuff, and of course, we're going to have a lot more to say on all of these issues. We do have to wrap it up there. I apologize, there's a little bit of a short episode. We had a lot of technical issues with this one, but that'll all change next week when we're all in studio together. So looking forward to all of the craziness. What is Trump going to say in his acceptance speech? That's going to be very interesting, and we'll all be experiencing it together.
And let me plug the porches this weekend.
Yes.
Philadelphia, PA, Friday. Not on a porch, but we got a cool brewery spot. Brewston Mills, West Virginia on Saturday, and then outside of Cleveland on Sunday. Come hang out with me on the porch.
Hell yeah. All right. And of course, check out Run Your Mouth, Rob's other podcast as well. All right. Catch you guys next time. Peace.